Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Camnet TV Main News. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. The headlines. The PF accuses government of neglecting the people of COPPERBELT. Court finds NUDE protester 18 kwacha. VUBWI Member of Parliament duly elected. In international news, protesters in Sudan demand army leave power, reject deal. And in sports, Morocco's success in World Cup inspires new generation. Join me with the details after this commercial.
A falcon, known for flying high speeds, unmistakably grace and flying incredible long distances. Falcon Express is equal to the task with your deliveries. Friendly and reliable, a company that cares for you, local and international coverage, company that empowers its customers on time, every time, all the time. Nationwide delivery.
Send your parcel through Falcon Express to Mongu, Kabwe, Ndola, Kapiri, Kitwe, Chingola, Chipata, Livingstone, Mazaboka, Kasama, Solwezi, Kalumbila, Chililabombwe, Luansha, Kalulushi. Get in touch with us on +260 971 130 766 and drop your parcels at Falcon Express. Falcon Express. Your parcels are safe with us.
And now the main news in detail. Chief Bunda of Soli people in Rufunza District, Lusaka, has observed the need for Zambia to invest in research if the fight against climate change is to be won. The traditional leader has cited countries like Egypt, who have invested heavily in research to aim at identifying and addressing challenges affecting them. Chief Bunda says the government must take a deliberate approach to finance research so that it can embark on evidence based on solution on the environmental issues and climate change. He states that Zambia has a lot of research, but that they lack funding to undertake the research.
What I've learned is that our research department is not up to date. Probably also I can even put it clearly that the students that we are producing, they are plagiarizing too much. So there's need to strengthen that research from the university level, from the student who is being produced, so that is getting into society, knows even how to structure the research, how to come up with a good data. Yeah, I've learned that, because even our friends, when you talk to them, you can tell that these guys are talking from the latest information. Okay. So like in the issue of the energy, we need more research in the issue of energy. We need more research actually. Like this time, vigorous researches have to be done in that. More funding has to be looked for. Yeah. So like if you talk of Zambia Development Agents, for me that is part of also their job in order to secure for funds to fund the university research departments, because that is Zambia Development Agents. So for us to develop, it has to come in quickly. So it has to work with these departments. It has to work with Zambia Institute of Scientific Research. What is it that they are lacking? So that once they do that, then we will move forward.
Leader of the opposition in Parliament, Brian Mundubile, has charged that Zambians, especially those on the COPPERBELT, realized their mistake voting for the United Party for National Development into office. He says it is irresponsible for the government to claim that investing $300 million in Mopani copper mines is not a priority. Mr. Mundubile has alleged that the only time the UPND administration has been seen to prioritize the mining sector is when they are given concessions to mines. And Mr. Mundubile says the PF is taking unfolding events in the mining sector seriously, further stating that they have put a red flag on the Kansashi and ZCCMIH transfer of shares transaction. Mr. Mundubile was speaking at a briefing on Friday.
The Opposition Patriotic Front Friday, during its weekly press conference on governance, highlighted a number of issues they feel the governing United Party for National Development is not doing right. Others raised concern over the government's communication inconsistencies and the handling of the Farmer Input Support Program, among others. PF Shuangando Member of Parliament Stephen Kampyongo says they are not against abolishing the death penalty, but the process being used through amendments. He says the government needs to call for a referendum so that Zambians can decide. Meanwhile, in the meantime, leader of the opposition in Parliament, Brian Mundubire, has charged that Zambians on the Copperbelt are now realizing that they made a mistake to vote for the United Party for National Development UPND, which has allegedly neglected them, as seen in the handling of the issue surrounding Mopani mine.
Responsible of government to come out with that reaction that they cannot invest in Mopani and that is not priority. Then the question is, what then is priority to the NUDE government? If the suffering of the poor people, the Zambians, is not priority, what then is their priority? Those are the questions to ask. We see them rushing to make decisions to give concessions in the mining sector, as long as those concessions will benefit the foreigners, the rich people. I'm therefore of a position that for some reason or the other, the president is not properly informed about what's happening on the Copperbelt. Because any sitting head of state voted for by the Zambian people, 2.8 million Zambians wake up to come and vote for him. You can only put Zambians as a priority. And neglecting the people on the Copperbelt in the manner the UPND is doing may be on account of the president not receiving correct information. But if at all he's received the correct information and he has continued to ignore the people on the Copperbelt, then I'm very sure that the Zambian people now realize that they made a mistake to vote the NUDE government into power. Because then you have a government in power that will not care about the suffering of its own local people.
And Mr. Mundubire says the PF is taking unfolding events in the mining sector seriously, further stating that they have put a red flag on the Kansanshi and ZCCM IH transfer of shares transaction.
Look beyond where ACC looks. So this transaction revolving around Kansanshi mine and FQM, we have put a red flag on it. As far as we are concerned, using our standard test for corruption, this case passes for one of those cases. So we want government to answer the difficult questions regarding this transaction. We want to ensure that the Zambian people get maximum benefit from their resources, starting with their mineral resource going forward.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
Lusaka magistrate Irene Washimanga has fined 28-year-old Dorcas Nachiwona, who tied herself with a chain to a freedom statue, fines 18 kwacha, fine for idle and disorderly conduct. Ms. Nachiwona, a property manager, was given a fine sentence after pleading guilty to the offense when she appeared before court Friday. Ms. Nachiwona is said to have publicly conducted herself in a manner likely to cause breach of peace on Wednesday, which she decided to tie herself with a chain at the statue while carrying a placard saying, "Stop giving us conditional aid, we want liberation."
After deciding to go at the Freedom Statue on Wednesday in the early morning and tied herself with a chain while holding a placard with the words written, "Stop giving conditional aid, we want liberation," 28-year-old property manager Dorcas Nachiwona says she is truly apologetic. No matter how noble the cause of her actions, the end will not justify the means, adding that she acted out of ignorance. The convict, a resident of Foxdale in Lusaka, said this Friday morning when she appeared before Lusaka magistrate Irene Washimanga to a charge of idle and disorderly conduct. Dorcas, who has spent 2 days behind the police cells of Lusaka since her arrest on the 7th of December 2022, was on Wednesday morning found tied to a fence at the Freedom Statue in Lusaka in an unexplained circumstance. She has been given a sentence of a fine of 18 kwacha in default 1 month simple imprisonment, as the offense she was facing is misdemeanor, which also allows for a fine. The offense of idle and disorderly conduct that the accused was facing is contrary to Section 178F of the Penal Code, Chapter 87 of the Laws of Zambia. On Wednesday, the police were investigating a matter in which the convict at the time, who was said to have been of Lusaka's Emansdale area, was found chained at the bars of the Freedom Statue fence, half naked and in a drunk state. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Meanwhile, Lusaka Magistrate Court has on 12th of December 2022 as dated plea for a possible commencement of trial in a matter which National Democratic Congress faction leader Savoy Imboyela is charged with the offences injurious to public in general. Imboyela, 45, of DULY is facing 1 count of offences injurious to the public in general, contrary to Section 3 of the Penal Code Chapter 87 of the Laws of Zambia. When the matter came up Friday before Magistrate Silva Wamunyinya, State Prosecutor Frederick Nsama informed the court that Imboyela was not present before the court. It is alleged that Imboyela, between September 9, 2022 and September 10, 2022 in Lusaka, jointly and whilst acting together with other persons unknown, did publish defamatory matters against Clayson Hamasaka on a Facebook page called Savoy Imboyela SI. Still in court news, the Constitutional Court has declared Opposition Patriotic Front's Aaron Banda as the duly elected VUBWI Member of Parliament. This was in a matter in which United Party for National Development UPND losing contender of VUBWI parliamentary constituency, Alfonso Piri, appealed over the declaration by the lower court that Mr. Banda was duly elected MP. The court has dismissed all his grounds of appeal.
It was all joy and smiles for Aaron Banda of the Opposition Patriotic Front after the Constitutional Court Friday ruled that he was the duly elected area Member of Parliament for VUBWI constituency. Mr. Banda, whose joy was shared with members of the Opposition Patriotic Front, was declared on the 23rd of November 2021 by the Lusaka High Court as the duly elected area Member of Parliament after his United Party for National Development UPND losing contender Alfonso Piri petitioned his election. Unsatisfied with the judgment by the lower court, Mr. Piri rushed to the Constitutional Court to appeal on 5 grounds, contending that the judge in the lower court erred by discrediting the evidence of some witnesses on ground that they were nationals of Malawi and Mozambique. Mr. Piri had also contended that the judge in the lower court erred by ruling that he had failed to prove that the respondent, Mr. Banda, and his agent bribed some VUBWI voters before the 12 August 2021 general elections. However, the Constitutional Court Friday morning dismissed all his grounds of appeal on the basis that the lower court was on firm ground as there was no sufficient evidence to prove the allegations.
It has been proven that we won these elections fairly and in a clean manner. I can just imagine that there were some seats that we lost, not because we deserved to lose, but because they were manipulated. Had we petitioned them, I'm sure that would have won some of them. But today is not a day for me to mourn. Today is a day for me to say to everybody in the party, this is time for us to pop champagne. It's a time to celebrate. And this is a time to reflect upon what we as a party need to be grassroots best and to be people who speak for the vulnerable people. I'm happy that...
Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The National AIDS Acting Council Director General Dr. Connie Osborne says it is estimated that 90% of people living with HIV and AIDS in Zambia know their HIV status and that 96% are variant suppressed, meaning the virus is undetectable and is untransmittable. Dr. Osborne, however, says the country cannot afford to drop the ball because the 10% of people who do not know their status have continued to spread the virus. She says it is for the reason that the Ministry of Health, through the National HIV Technical Working Group and the National AIDS, TB and STI Council will be hosting the first annual conference, which will provide a platform that will bring stakeholders to share emerging evidence and lesson learned so far. And the SUDAN PHI Director General, Professor Roma Chilenji, says the country has learned many lessons during the COVID-19 outbreak, which should be reviewed to ensure that many people are prevented from contracting the virus.
About 98% of the people that know their HIV status, they are on life-saving drugs. And of these people, about 86%, according to our recent Zamfia results, they are virally suppressed. What it means is when we examine their blood, the virus is undetectable. And this is important because undetectable means untransmissible. But even when people in Zambia are now living longer, healthier lives, just like people with high blood pressure and diabetes, we cannot afford to drop the ball.
So, if you have HIV and you are on treatment, and as the Director General said, you are virally suppressed, you are in a much better space should you get COVID. But what we are saying is get vaccinated as well, so that you are really as safe as anybody else. And in this case, for both HIV and COVID, when you are under control, you are not only protecting yourself, you are protecting the next person.
The conference therefore hopes to present critical advances in basic, clinical, and operational HIV, COVID-19, TB, viral hepatitis research that will move science into policy and practice to respond to epidemics.
In other news, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Minister Elias Muwanga says the government is devising a plan to empower welders along the Ali Kinkata Road in Kalingalinga area of Munali constituency. The welders have been raising concerns that successive governments have not come to their aid despite empowerment assurances. And Mr. Muwanga tells Camnet News that the government have been looking for an effective way of improving the vibrance of the small businesses that have huge potential for growth. The minister adds that there has been progress in the formulation of small and medium enterprises policies.
These are the famous welders of Kalingalinga Township operating.
But the body change is the full empowerment welders. Tipanga madexi chani bosiana siana. But mama kapelani madexi aronga kuma school. Wanda ma companies ne wamene matenga panga madexi washita bad. My FM youth tina for the team combo na make sense ya combo ntibe ma companies. Watenza kwa panje so kuma boma yanga nepo.
Tinabota para ndo zabo samwe kusamwe kuma 21 njani kuja masoja kuja tinabota mchemunja bati hapa. Tipemba goche.
We spoke to Zambia's minister responsible for small and medium enterprises development, Elias Muwanga, who explained that they are working on a specific program targeting welders along the Ali Kinkata Road.
Those boys there who are doing fabrication work, they are my target. Very soon we want to get to them and then also give them a package, help them develop what they are doing. You know, we want to bring up a certain, mechanism for them, to bring them together, and then we set up some more like an industrial hub for them.
He adds that progress has been made on the process of formulating the small and medium enterprises policy.
And very soon, because I think we are just at the last stage. The group we are in Siavonga, developing the policy, and they are just finalizing. We've actually consulted throughout this country, and all the top stakeholders have been consulted, and we just finalizing this. It will be a game changer for the small and medium businesses. Very soon we'll be able to announce it.
Development advocates have been of the view that if Zambia is to sustainably grow its economy, citizens must be empowered to take over the wheels of production. Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
You're watching Camnet TV Main News. We take our first set of commercials. We'll be back with more after this.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that MOROCCO is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. MOROCCO Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes and keeps your skin perfect. MOROCCO Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
Quest to save nations and develop Africa, Savenda is investing in the agriculture sector so as to produce supply for both local and international markets, housing over 12,000 pullets that are nurtured and fed with our locally made stock feed that comes from our own locally grown maize and soya beans, all processed from our recently installed milling and mixing plant. Our over 95,000 layers have an output capacity of over 1,500 trays of fresh eggs per day that are carefully selected and packaged for all the leading stores and supermarkets nationwide. Our greenhouses are fitted with the latest irrigation system, and the seedlings are nurtured to ensure only healthy plants reach the fields. With our deliberate planting schedule, we are better placed to supply constantly without interruption, thus reliable. Savenda Farms is also changing lives of its dedicated workforce drawn from the local community and beyond. So the next time you think fresh and green, think Savenda Farms.
Good news, good news. The rains have started. You need to plan your future. Generational wealth is the way to go. Has grafted avocado plants fruiting within 2 to 3 years for sale at only 90 kwacha each, and ordinary avocados at only 45 kwacha each. Contact us on 0979 753010 or 0962 965 883. We are open from 8 hours to 17 hours, Monday to Friday, at Healing Word Ministries International in Ibex Hill, opposite Hilltop Hospital.
Welcome back. We continue with the rest of the main news. Government has released more than 86 million kwacha to address the emergency sanitation situation in 4 districts hardly hit by sanitation challenges. Minister of Water Development and Sanitation, Mike Mposha, says funds will go towards the replacements of sewer pipes, upgrading of collapsed sewer networks, and rehabilitation of old and dilapidated sanitation networks. The minister has named the hardly hit places as Kwacha and Mulongoti Township in Kitwe, Kabushi Township in Ndola, Ron and Mpatamatu Township in Luansha, as well as Kaunda Square in Lusaka. He says if the sanitation challenges are not addressed in these areas, it will result in serious outbreak of waterborne diseases this rainy season.
Infrastructure has continued to cause serious water and sanitation challenges, thereby posing serious threats of the outbreak of waterborne diseases in communities. Kaunda Square in Lusaka, Kwacha and Wulongoti Township in Kitwe, Kabushi Township in Ndola, Ron and Mpatamato Townships in Luansha have been identified as the most affected areas which government says needs urgent interventions. Minister of Water and Sanitation Mike Mposha, working with the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU, has since announced that government has released more than 86 million kwacha to address the emerging sanitation situation in the above-mentioned townships.
The Treasury has released to this ministry an amount to the tune of 86,630,000 kwacha 115. The said amount is meant to address the emergency sanitation situation in the affected areas as earlier mentioned. I must emphasize here that this government will not allow a situation where our people should continue being subjected to living and trading in sewer flooded environment.
The minister adds that the resources will be released to the utility companies in the named areas and that works should be undertaken by the CUs themselves without having to engage contractors from the outside unless where need be. He has since warned the utility company to refrain from doing shady works.
I will not sit here, we will not sit here as government and just watch the laissez-faire attitude. We have given out these funds, and we want, these are emergency works. We don't want these works to take forever. We want to ensure that you quickly go in, procure the pipes that are required, procure all the necessary things that you need, and begin the works so that we don't go until after the rain season. We are still in the procurement, and then people are subjected to the very things that we are trying to avoid.
And Mr. Mposha says the country needs in excess of 6 billion kwacha to completely deal with the challenges of water and sanitation, adding that his government is working round the clock to ensure that it raises the much needed resources to address the challenge. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Zambia Institute of Architects and the Zambia Police are set to sign a memorandum of understanding which will allow for the investigation and prosecution of criminal offences under the Zambia Institute of Architects Act No. 36 of 1995. ZIA President Architects Fidelis Kabwiri says the agreement that was arrived at a meeting held on Thursday is important as it will protect the unsuspecting members of the public from individuals and firms who masquerade as architects and offer unprofessional services in the built environment, thereby endangering lives. Architect Kabwiri says masquerading has led to some members of the public being swindled by individuals purporting to be architects and unprofessionally designed structures collapsing in the recent past, leading to the loss of lives and investments. He says it is a criminal offence under section of individuals or firms not registered with the institute to offer architectural services or hold themselves as architects. The Chipata District Chamber of Commerce has welcomed the official commissioning of one-stop border post at Chipata and Mchinji. Chamber of Commerce President Richard Kumwenda says the opening of the one-stop border post will boost businesses between the two nations as well as create employment opportunities for the youths.
Official commissioning of the one-stop border post at Chipata and Mchinji. District Chamber of Commerce Chairperson Richard Kumwenda gives projections on the business side.
Very important today because we are opening the border post where business previously had the challenges. People could not do the business because of the challenges. But now that this facility has opened, it means people will have opportunity to do business for both countries as one-stop border. And so the benefit is that the young people will have an opportunity to find jobs. And also the business will grow, we'll be able to export to other countries goods which are coming from Zambia, taking them to Malawi and other countries across the world.
Chipata City Mayor George Mwanza is happy with the opening of the one-stop border post between the two neighboring countries.
The city, and as a growing city that is bordering the Republic of Malawi, we are happy with this development, that finally this infrastructure is actually coming to use because on the economic sense, this means a serious boost on the economic activity of the city because the one-stop border post is going to enhance speed in terms of clearance and passage of various commodities, including people. And when people are actually traveling at a faster rate, it means business is able to flow at a faster rate.
Zambia High Commissioner to Malawi, Kanel Punch Kaunda, projected the effective business integration and increased employment opportunities for the local citizenry from both countries.
This is a very important day in the two countries, Zambia and Malawi. As you know, our president is focusing on the economies of these countries. The opening of this border will make it easy for our two trading partners to move their goods and business easier. Before this
Sylvester Shimba for Zanis in Chipata District, Eastern Province.
In other news, the government has approved 462,162 Kwacha Constituency Development Fund CDF for empowerment grants under Sinda and Kapoche constituencies to 46 youth cooperatives and women clubs. Sinda District Town Council Secretary John Mackay announced the approval of the grants, which are part of the 25.7 million Kwacha CDF allocation for 2022. Mr. Mackay says the 162 Kwacha will be channeled to various cooperatives and clubs in the area. And Kapoche Member of Parliament Lakson Lungu said the approval of the CDF empowerment grants are a testimony of the government's commitment to serving the people of Sinda district at grassroots level. Meanwhile, Sinda Member of Parliament Matsaotso Tembo has urged CDF beneficiaries to put the money to good use for the development to be attained and improve their livelihoods.
Government has approved 462,162 Kwacha Steward Development Fund CDF for empowerment grants under Sinda and Kapoche constituencies to 23 youth cooperatives and women clubs. Sinda District Town Council Secretary John Mackay announced in Sinda today the approval of the grants, which are part of the 25.7 million CDF allocation.
Our government. Today, we have about 46 clubs and cooperatives, youth groups and women's groups that are going to receive empowerments. Under Kapoche, each group will receive 20,000, giving us a total of 462,162. As for Sinda, we have 23 groups that are equally going to receive 20,000 each, representing a total of 462,162.
Kapoche Member of Parliament Lakson Lungu has thanked President Hakainde Hichilema for empowering marginalized people in the communities.
Nikurupirira nthawi ndi nthawi timankhala na chilingo pamene tikhala mu moyo wathu. Timalo lakalaka kuti tikabwina kakati kachiteko malonda mu moyo wathu. Ndiye pamene nthawi yatifikira kuti tikhaleko na mpata kuchita malonda. Nthawi yakwana ija amene timafuna kuti tikachiteko malonda tiye tione kuti osati tikaite disappoint a president, osati tikaite disappoint a MP, osati disappoint a council chairman komanso na makansela.
Ndalama zamene mwatenga ngasenzese bwino sibeka bwinoye tachiwo chifunika ni chani chikondi chifunika ni chani palibe chikondi palibe chitukuko palibe chikondi palibe mgwiriza so ndalama mkatenga ngasenzese bwino a president watu Hakainde Hichilema afro choso mphawe wina aliyense kumuzi.
And one of the beneficiaries, Daniel Banda, has assured government to use the money for the intended purposes.
Mtokoza no yamikira monga kumbali atu komenti choka ni kutali kuboda kapena ndio manyumba yo chirizira kuboda na Mozambique.
Really? My name is Yana. Banga kubunkire ni dad.
Don't worry, man. That's why there is insurance.
Insurance?
You heard me.
Not just any kind of insurance, but Savenda General Insurance, a company that offers superior customer service, highly professional and dedicated staff. We are not just any insurance company, but an insurance company that actually pays our claims. We cover, among others, fire, marine, aviation, engineering, agriculture, motor vehicle, and miscellaneous insurance. So, live life to the full, knowing that Savenda General Insurance has got you covered. Savenda General Insurance. Insurance excellence.
Welcome back. We now get into our international item. Sudanese protesters faced armed vehicles firing tear gas bomb at them on Thursday, December 8th. Some demonstrators carried shields and threw stones towards security forces. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Khartoum led by the Resistance Committee group to demand the ouster of the country's military ruler and reject a deal for the gradual transfer of power to civilian leaders. Demonstrators in the capital headed for the Republican Palace, the seat of the ruling military council, before being intercepted by security forces who fired tear gas and water hoses at the crowds. There are no confirmed reports of any casualties. In other news, Ghana's Finance Minister Kenneth Oforo-Atta escaped a vote of no confidence in Parliament Thursday, November 8th. After ruling party lawmakers pulled out a vote on his handling of the country's economic crisis. President Nana Akufo-Addo's government is currently under pressure as it negotiates up to $3 billion United States dollars in bailout loans from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Here's a roundup of international news.
Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Khartoum, calling out a deal for the gradual transfer of power to civilian leaders, which was signed with the military earlier this week. Thursday's protest was led by the Resistance Committee's group that steadily rejected negotiations with the ruling junta, whereas Sudan's main pro-democracy group is one of the signatories of the framework agreement. We totally reject the deal because it doesn't meet or fulfill even 1% of the Sudanese street demands. At the top is holding the martyrs' murderers accountable and achieving tangible results in the justice area, as well as other areas related to achieving freedom and peace. They're fundamental. The deal is based on a proposal by the Sudanese Bar Association. Officials from the UN, Western diplomats, as well as Saudi Arabia and the UAE attended the negotiations. Last year's coup ended a previous transition deal. Ghana's finance minister escaped a vote of no confidence in Parliament Thursday. 136 minority lawmakers participated in the secret vote process. They all backed the vote to remove Kenneth Ofori-Atta. However, they failed to reach the two-thirds majority required to oust him. Indeed, majority ruling party lawmakers walked out of Parliament before the vote. Ofori-Atta faced MPs last month, questioning him on his financial management of the nation and allegations of misappropriation of public funds. The government comes under increasing pressure, with President Nana Akufo-Addo facing growing criticism for what has become Ghana's worst economic crisis. Inflation is running over 40% and the cedi has lost 50% in value this year to become the worst performing currency in the world. Ghana asked investors on Monday to exchange around $9 billion in domestic debt for new bonds in an attempt to ease a crunch in payments as the government negotiates an IMF bailout.
We now get into sports news. The advance of the Moroccan team into the quarter-final of the World Cup in Qatar is bringing hope and making kids and trainers of the new generation of soccer players dream about the future. In a neighboring city to the capital, Rabat, Sales Athletic Association trains boys and girls in the sport. It has also taken some of them away from the streets. About 60 kids aged between 6 and 13 gather on the soccer field a few times a week to practice. Most of them are dreaming of following in the steps of players like Hakim Ziyech, Yassine Bono or Sofiane Amrabat, and one day wear the red and green jersey to represent the North African country in a tournament. Some of the boys and girls have come from poor areas or from families and financial problems and can't afford to pay the yearly membership of about $30 that covers insurance and uniforms, among other things. The fees, however, does not prevent them from playing.
The advance of the Moroccan team into the quarter-final of the Qatar World Cup is bringing hope and making kids and trainers of the new generation of soccer players dream about the future. In this neighboring city of capital Rabat, SARS Athletic Association train boys and girls in the sport. It has also taken some of them away from the street. My dream is to become a great player and play with the national team. Some of the boys and girls have come from poor areas or from families with financial problems and can't afford to pay the yearly membership of about $30,000 that covers insurance and uniforms, among other things. All the kids we have in this school are from the Sal region, and most of them, roughly 80%, are from the old Medina in Sal. The idea of creating this association came from a group of young people who played football in the past and decided to create a football school on a voluntary basis to help young children. At the end of the training and inspired by the results of the national team, the kids cheered in support of the Moroccan squad that will face Portugal next Saturday. I salute the Moroccan team who made a tremendous effort in the World Cup and made the Arab world as well as Africa very proud by reaching the quarter-final stage, and why not reach the final? To get to this moment, Morocco defeated Spain, reaching the quarter-final of the World Cup for the first time in its history. A win against Portugal will surely make them proud.
Well, that sports item brings us to the end of Camnet TV main news, but before we go, here are the headlines once again. The PF accuses government of neglecting the people of COPPERBELT. Court finds NUDE protester 18 kwacha. VUBWI Member of Parliament duly elected. In international news, protesters in Sudan demand army leave power, reject deal. And in sports, Morocco's success in World Cup inspires new generation. Before we go, our Camnet verse of the day is coming from the book of John 15 verse 5 and 8. It reads, Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruits. Apart from me, you can do nothing. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Thank you for watching. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Pleasant viewing.
Tuma timvere, tuma. Panga phone.
Hey guys, where are you watching? You know what? This camera, Rondo, you be my moderator, I should be coming every day on my horses. When why are you flirting with Rashijo?
On your life.
On my life? How dare you?
God, Lord.
How dare you flirt on my life?
Somebody please, man, it's a dating, it's like it's not.
Oh, there's a party tomorrow, eh?
Your life will not become a hookup session. You start charging.
There's a party tomorrow. It's 50 kwacha. But 50 kwacha. But I'll come with my own alcohol.